So the concept that we are going to go through now uh, may not seem to make a lot of sense today, but later on when we get into making graphs out of things, it's going to make a lot more sense. The thing to understand about what we're going to talk about today is the shape of data. And there's two kinds of shapes of data. There is wide data and there is long data. And long data typically is what we've been working with. Most data is fairly long, where this is a data set I just made up of a couple other data sets and just combined them together. This is digs by team for the last two volleyball seasons. So when I mean long data, here is Utah Valley in 2023. And if I scroll down here, 300 and some odd places, there's 2024. And there's Utah Valley 2024. And so each team is in here twice, once for 2023 and once for 2024. So the two seasons are stacked on top of each other, which is what we mean by long data. One row, 1 year, one team. But if I wanted to calculate how many digs, what's the change in digs from season to season, I can't do that right now because I only have one digs column. For that to work, I'd need it side by side. That is wide data. So the first thing we're going to do here is ignore all that other stuff. We're going to convert our VB data frame here into wide data. And the new verb we're learning today is pivot. Well, there's two new verbs. One is pivot wider, and it takes just two things. It takes a names from parameter, and that is, we have to give it a column in our volleyball data over here that's now going to be the column names. Well, the season is what we want. Season. And then values from. And the way to think of values from is what's the number that's going to appear under that season? Well, in this case, it's digs. So without me running this, what it should look like when it's done is I should have one row per team because we didn't do anything with teams in here. So the first row is going to be teams. The names of the columns are going to be the seasons. So one is going to be 2023 and one is going to be 2024. And then this values from is going to give me the number of digs in those seasons. And if I run it, that's exactly what I get. So now, because I have those things, I can actually go in here and mutate, and we'll call this difference. And that's the 2024 minus 2023. Notice I'm putting backticks around the years. Numbers like that as column names is not allowed. You put backticks around it and it will interpret it as a column. So now if I do that, Utah Valley had 255 more digs in 2024 versus 2023. I can even do one more thing here because I kind of want to know this. Team equals Nebraska. We had 190 more digs in 2024 than we did in 2023. So pivot wider, as the name would imply, is how you make long data wide. And now I can create a new data frame here called VB wider. My arrow, I run this. Now over here I have VB wider. Now, if I have wide data, if I'm given wide data from a provider and I need to make it long data, there is also, of course, something called pivot longer. And pivot longer takes some more stuff here. The hardest thing to remember with it is calls. I've got to tell it what columns are getting turned. And in this case, in VB wider, I have 3 columns. The team is not the column that I'm trying to turn. It's these year columns. Now I can, in calls, just name them 2023, 2024, like that. With just two of them, that's no big deal. Like I could do that all day long. That's not a big deal. And then instead of names from and values from, it's names to, and I can make this whatever I want. So I'm going to set it back to what it was. The names of these of 2023 and 2024, that's going to be the season, and the values to, I'm going to set that back to digs because that's what that number is underneath there. I can run this right now and it will work. And I'm right back to where I was before, where I have long data. You see I've got Utah Valley in here twice, North Alabama twice, California Baptist twice, so on and so forth. There are a couple of ways to populate this calls bit here. Another one that works pretty well is if you have a pattern to these column names, you can use that pattern. So for instance, 2023 and 2024, the pattern here is the first two letters are 20. Well, there's a function called starts with, and I can just say 20. And if I run this, it does the exact same thing. So depending on how many columns you have to work with here, you might want to try starts with if they all start with the same thing. There is also ends with. In this case, we don't have that. We don't have a pattern where they end with. Or I can use the same concatenate function that we used with filtering lists, 2023 and 2024. More than one way to solve this problem, but the first thing you got to do is all of the columns that contain the numbers that you're going to turn, they've got to be in there. With 2, it's no big deal. If I got 12, this is a pain. I'm going to try to find some other way to do that and make it easier. Then names to and values to, whatever you put in these quotes, it's just a name. You could make this Mike Eckler used to be my next door neighbor, which is true. His mom was my 4th grade teacher, which is also true. But again, that's not what those are. This is a season, and these are digs. And run, and away it goes. So that's how you transform data. Not particularly useful right now, but when we get to making line charts, when we get to making step charts, when we get to be making a bunch of other kinds of charts, going to become very important. So that's why we learn it now.